If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge. And when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. The Abyss opens. First encounters with the Devil's Kettle. The first white settlers who stumbled upon the falls in the 1800s stopped dead in their tracks. They watched the Brule River race toward a rocky ledge, then split like a snake's tongue. Half the water tumbled down the rocks as waterfalls should. The other half simply vanished. Local Ojibwe tribes had whispered about this place for generations. They called it a doorway to the spirit world. Their stories spoke of warriors who ventured too close and never returned. The elders warned their children to stay away from the angry waters that disappeared into the earth. Early loggers working the North Shore began sharing strange tales around their campfires. They dropped logs into the mysterious hole, expecting to see them emerge downstream. The logs never appeared. Some men claimed they heard voices echoing from deep below. Others swore the water sang with an otherworldly hum. By the 1920s, curious visitors made the dangerous trek through dense forest to witness the impossible sight. They brought cameras, hoping to capture proof of nature's puzzle. Many left more confused than when they arrived. How could half a river simply cease to exist? Judge Clarence Magny, the man who would give his name to the future state park, first visited in 1957. He stood at the edge of that bottomless pit, mesmerized by the swirling water that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Where did it go? What lay hidden in those depths? Strange accidents began piling up in local records. Hikers slipped on wet rocks near the falls. Some were found days later, miles from where they should have been. Others vanished completely, leaving behind only footprints that ended at the water's edge. When Minnesota established the state park in 1963, rangers thought they could solve the mystery with modern equipment. They tried everything. Colored dyes turned the water bright green, but nothing green ever surfaced downstream. Ping pong balls by the thousands disappeared into the void. Even a car was reportedly dropped in during the 1960s, never to be seen again. The Devil's Kettle earned its sinister name honestly. Visitors described an overwhelming sense of dread when peering into the hole. Some claimed to feel invisible hands pulling them forward. Park officials quietly began installing better railings and warning signs. What started as indigenous legend had transformed into documented mystery. Scientists, tourists, and thrill seekers all came seeking answers. None left satisfied. The waterfall had become more than a natural wonder. It was a question mark carved into the landscape, challenging everything we thought we knew about how water behaves. The abyss had opened, and it was hungry for answers that might never come. Things lost to the Whirlpool, documented incidents and bewildering disappearances. The first ping from the GPS tracker lasted exactly 12 minutes. Then silence. Dr. Sarah Chen watched her laptop screen in disbelief as the signal vanished completely. She had dropped the device into Devil's Kettle just after dawn, expecting to trace its path through the underground channels. Instead, she joined a long list of researchers who had watched their equipment disappear without explanation. The stories began with simple things. Park rangers tell of countless sticks and logs thrown into the churning hole by curious visitors. Not one has ever been found downstream. Tennis balls, volleyballs, even weighted dye packets have vanished completely. The water swallows everything and gives nothing back. Local resident Tom Miller remembers the day in 1998 when researchers dropped a bright orange foam ball into the kettle. "We had spotters all along the river for miles," he says. "That ball should have popped up somewhere. It never did." The disappearances grew stranger. 3 separate GPS tracking devices have been lost since 2015. Each one transmitted briefly before going dark. The signals don't fade gradually like equipment moving away. They simply stop, as if switched off by an unseen hand. But the most troubling stories involve people. Mary Hutchinson, who lived near the falls for 60 years, swears her neighbor's dog fell into the kettle during a thunderstorm in 1987. That dog was a strong swimmer, she insists. We searched for days, never found so much as a collar. Then came the car incident of 2003. Deputy Sheriff Jake Morrison filed an official report about tire tracks leading directly to the kettle's edge. The vehicle registration traced to a missing person case from Duluth. Neither car nor driver was ever recovered. Scientific instruments tell the same impossible story. Temperature probes register normal readings until the moment they enter the kettle, then transmit absolute zero before cutting out. Flow meters detect water moving at tremendous speed, then register nothing at all. The community response split between believers and skeptics. Local newspapers ran headlines like "The Hole That Eats Everything" and "Scientists Stumped by Vanishing Act." Tourism increased as curiosity seekers arrived with their own objects to sacrifice to the mysterious void. Each failed recovery attempt adds another layer to the mystery. Professional divers refuse to enter the water. Underwater cameras malfunction within seconds. Even simple fishing lines seem to dissolve when lowered into the swirling darkness. The pattern remains consistent across decades of documentation. Objects go in, nothing comes out. The kettle keeps its secrets, leaving researchers to wonder what force could make solid matter simply cease to exist. The search for answers, early investigations, and failed experiments. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of Devil's Kettle Falls, watching bright green dye disappear into the swirling hole. She had been tracking water mysteries for 20 years, but this place made her question everything she knew about physics. The year was 1997, and local scientists had grown tired of tourist tales and ghost stories. They wanted real answers. Mitchell's team poured gallons of fluorescent dye into the churning water. If the missing stream connected to Lake Superior or any nearby river, the dye would show up somewhere downstream. Days passed, then weeks. The green dye never appeared anywhere. Next came the ping pong balls. Hundreds of them, bright orange and impossible to miss. Local volunteers searched every creek, every outlet, every possible exit point for miles around. The balls vanished as completely as the water itself. Professor James Hendricks arrived from the University of Minnesota with expensive equipment. GPS trackers the size of tennis balls went into the hole. Each one cost more than most people's monthly salary. The electronic signals died within minutes of hitting the water. The failures mounted like a growing fever. Flow meters showed exactly half the river's water disappeared at the falls. But where did it go? Underground rivers should emerge somewhere. Physics demanded it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez brought her geology team in 2003. They mapped every cave system within 50 miles. They studied rock formations and underground water tables. Their computers showed no possible path for the missing water to take. The town of Grand Marais buzzed with excitement each time new scientists arrived. Reporters followed the experiments. Local newspapers ran headlines about breakthrough attempts. But every test ended the same way. Nothing came back. Frustrated researchers started fighting among themselves. Some blamed faulty equipment. Others questioned their methods. A few whispered about forces beyond normal science. The ping pong ball experiment was repeated 7 more times with different colored balls. Orange, yellow, red, blue. None ever surfaced anywhere. It was as if the earth simply swallowed them whole. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Internet forums exploded with talk of government cover-ups and supernatural portals. People claimed the missing water powered secret military bases or fed underground alien cities. Dr. Mitchell returned 5 times over the next decade. Each visit left her more puzzled than before. She had studied water flow patterns around the world, but Devil's Kettle broke every rule she knew. The pressure grew unbearable. grant money dried up as results failed to materialize. Scientific journals rejected papers that couldn't explain the phenomenon. Careers stalled over this single impossible waterfall. Yet the water kept disappearing, day after day, year after year. Half a river gone without a trace. Confronting the unknown, scientific breakthroughs and revelations. In 2016, something changed at Devil's Kettle. Scientists from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources arrived with measuring tools and notebooks. They had grown tired of the wild stories and endless questions. The time had come to find real answers. The team set up their stream gauges with careful precision. One gauge sat above the waterfall, counting every drop that rushed toward the split. Another waited downstream, measuring what flowed past after the mysterious hole had claimed its share. For months, they collected numbers: water volume, flow rates, seasonal changes, all recorded with scientific patience. The results surprised everyone. The water going in matched the water coming out. Every gallon that disappeared into the kettle somehow returned to the river below. The mystery wasn't about vanishing water after all. It was about where that water traveled underground. The scientists proposed using special dyes to trace the hidden path. Bright colors would follow the water through whatever secret tunnels lay beneath the rocks. But park officials stopped these plans. Devil's Kettle sits in protected wilderness. The risk of harming this wild place outweighed the need to solve an old puzzle. Even without the dye tests, the measurement data told a clear story. The missing water wasn't truly missing. It traveled through fractures in the ancient bedrock, following paths carved by centuries of pressure and erosion. These natural pipes carried the flow through darkness before returning it to daylight downstream. The scientific breakthrough shattered decades of wild theories. No bottomless pit existed. No magical portals swallowed the water forever. The answer lived in simple geology and patient observation. Local reactions proved mixed. Some felt disappointed that such a famous mystery had such an ordinary explanation. Others celebrated the power of careful science to solve age-old questions. Tour guides faced the challenge of making underground water flow sound as exciting as supernatural legends. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources published their findings with quiet satisfaction. Years of speculation ended with stream gauges and basic math. The scientific method had prevailed over folklore and fear. Yet doubt lingered in some minds. Visitors still peer into the kettle with wonder, half expecting the water to behave impossibly. The official explanation feels too simple for such a dramatic sight. Perhaps some mysteries resist complete resolution, even when science provides clear answers. The breakthrough at Devil's Kettle became more than solving one puzzle. It showed how systematic investigation could challenge long-held beliefs and replace speculation with understanding. The waterfall kept its dramatic beauty while losing its supernatural reputation. Truths revealed, questions remain, the resolution and lingering mysteries. The scientists had their answer. The water doesn't disappear at all. It simply flows underground and rejoins the main river downstream. Most experts accepted this explanation. The mystery was solved. But something strange happened after the truth came out. People kept asking questions. The local guides still whispered to visitors about the missing water. Tourists threw sticks and bottles into the hole, waiting to see them pop up somewhere else. They rarely did. Where were all those floating objects going? Scientists explained that underground passages can trap debris for years. Branches get stuck in narrow spaces. Bottles sink into deep pools where no one will ever find them. The water moves freely, but everything else gets lost in the maze below. Yet deaths at the falls continued to haunt the area. Young hikers slipped on wet rocks. Others misjudged the current's power. These accidents had simple explanations. Waterfalls are dangerous places. People take risks. Tragedies happen. But locals remembered the old stories. They spoke of the kettle's hunger, its need to claim victims. Science couldn't erase decades of fear and folklore. The truth created its own puzzle. How do you kill a legend with facts? You can't. Not completely. Researchers faced another problem. They prove where the water goes, but they couldn't point to the exact spot where it comes back up. The river is long and complex. Finding that precise location would take more time and money than anyone wanted to spend. This gap left room for doubt. If scientists couldn't show people the exact exit point, maybe the mystery wasn't really solved after all. The Devil's Kettle story teaches us something important about human nature. We want answers, but we also love mysteries. Facts can coexist with legends. Evidence doesn't always satisfy our deepest curiosities. The waterfall transformed from an impossible puzzle into a mostly understood phenomenon. Yet it kept its power to fascinate people. Tour buses still arrive daily. Visitors still lean over the railing, watching half a river vanish into darkness. Nature has a way of humbling our attempts at complete understanding. We can measure water flow and map underground channels. We can explain the science behind the mystery, but we cannot control how people feel when they stand at the edge of something unknown. The kettle reminds us that some questions matter more than their answers. The search itself becomes the story. Wonder survives even when mystery fades. Scientists did their job. They found the truth hiding beneath decades of speculation. But truth, as it turns out, doesn't always end the conversation. Sometimes it just changes the subject.